All right, this is my second trial with my last video on fertilization. So we're going to kind of continue with oogenesis where we ended off, and we talked about how a mature egg once a month is released from the ovaries and travels down the fallopian tubes. It's within those fallopian tubes that fertilization does occur. And if that does take place, now we call it a zygote. And that zygote is considered living. And the reason why we count it as a living creature is because of the fact that it's life using biological terms. All right, and we're going to look at this life, as we talked about just a little bit ago, as biological terms because it can grow, respond, reproduce, and has a metabolism rate, so it has those functions of life. The problem is that developing zygote is more going to be like a parasite than anything else. It's because it has to survive a long period of time within its host, which is the mother. Once fertilized, that egg begins to divide. All right, next slide. And we just kind of talked about this already. It's typically fertilized in fallopian tubes. Again, zygote begins to divide. 5 days after conception, it implants itself in the uterine wall. And if that does not take place, so when the egg implants itself in the uterine wall, it will release a bunch of hormones. If the body does not receive those hormones, then it's going to go through the process of menstruation, and that's when an egg is not fertilized. Around 10 days after fertilization, that it is fully attached to the uterus, and most fertilized eggs do not make it this far. In fact, this is even before mom knows she's pregnant. Maybe there's a problem with the number of chromosomes, or maybe non-disjunction that we talked about beforehand with maybe a trisomy or a monosomy. And so mom would probably carry baby before she even notices that she's pregnant. It's about 12 days is when mom would finally notice that she's pregnant. So those hormones are being produced. Now, as I'm going to talk about some of these baby development stages, I want you to realize that there's 2 different time scales. I'm doing the time scale based on baby. So when I say 3 weeks, that's 3 weeks since baby was formed or since fertilization. The mom scale is a little bit different. They start mom scale at the first day of her last period. So that's where we get the 40 weeks gestation period, because it starts day 1 of mom's last period. And it makes sense because we don't know exactly what day fertilization takes place. Women ovulate at different points in time. So this is where then mom's time clock goes. What I'm mentioning to you with these facts would be baby's time clock. All right, so the first thing that we're going to look at is 2 weeks. And at 2 weeks, we get a primitive nervous system starting to form. If you look at the slide, you can see a couple different things. You can see right in here is where baby, the amniotic sac is, and then right here is the baby. You can see there's a real dark brown towards the end, and that would be where the nervous system is starting to form. It's kind of okay. Here is baby at 3 weeks, and you can kind of see. I mean, we look really goofy. You can see baby has a tail, and right in here there's a little bulge right there, and that's going to be where the heart is at. So that is the heart bulge, and that will start beating. At this point, we do call baby an embryo once we get that heartbeat around 3 weeks. 4 weeks kind of looks the same as what we had 3 weeks. We're definitely noticing a defined head area, definitely a defined tail area. And you can see in this picture over here, here would be the umbilical cord connecting to a placenta that's starting to form. All right, 5 weeks, And we kind of noticed in the other picture, but now these are a lot more prominent. We are starting to get these little buds. So right here is one, and right here is one, the arm and leg buds. So we're starting to get arms and legs. Again, here is our spinal cord. Heart keeps on beating. It's been beating since 3 weeks. Here, primitive eye. Here's the umbilical cord, and then they're pointing over here to the yolk sac. We're going to see in a couple other pictures because it comes a little bit more apparent. Brain really hasn't developed much. You can kind of see it in there, but we're going to get into more development of the brain at a later point in time. Here is 6 weeks, and what you're going to notice the difference between this and the last picture is right over here where the eyes are really darkening. You also see the buds for the arms and the legs. And what you're noticing, this goofy structure over here is, I think, either the umbilical cord or it's the yolk sac. Very curved, still does not look human. If we get to 7 weeks, now we've kind of lost that tail. There's just a little bit left to it, but it's really disappearing. Here's the yolk sac that I mentioned. The whole point of a yolk sac is because of the fact that the placenta does not get fully functional at this point in time, baby needs some nutrients to feed itself. So a yolk sac is developed, and that's supplying the baby with some of its needs until the placenta is fully formed. At that point in time, when the placenta is fully formed, then we have a land bridge between mom and baby. I had to stop down here to grab my coat. Okay, we're going to hit 8 weeks, and this is where the brain really starts to form. So we're going to get a lot more formation. Beforehand, you know, kind of a little divot in the head, and that was just because the connection between the spinal cord and brain was not kind of really fixed together. We can notice the hands and feet a little bit more. Again, the heart, that little bulge, and that yolk sac is a lot smaller. And the reason why it's getting smaller and smaller is because most of its supplies have been depleted, and the umbilical cord and placenta are going to start almost their full function here in a little bit. At 10 weeks, we hit another landmark. This would be for mom, stationally 12 weeks. It's the end of the first trimester. And at that end, your chances of miscarriages dramatically decrease. Part of that is because a lot of baby is now formed. If you can see even this picture of baby looks more like a baby than anything else that we've looked at beforehand. We're going to still continue growth and development, but a lot of the growth and development that's going to take place from this point on is going to be more adding weight, making baby a little bit larger, converting cartilage structures for bone. So we're just going to be adding more. Now there's going to be more development within the brain. There's going to be more development within some of the lungs. But baby's just going to continue to grow as a lot of it. So here we hit this landmark also. It's around 10 weeks. We can determine sex on ultrasound. It's really difficult at that point in time. So most moms will wait until 20 weeks if they want to find out the gender. And that's typically where normal ultrasound places set at, but different doctors will have ultrasounds at different point in times. And as we mentioned, placenta is going to now supply baby with everything. So we see there's no longer a yolk sac. That placenta will give to the baby mom's oxygen, mom's food, and baby is able to then give back to mom baby's waste products that it doesn't need. So everything is processed through mom. So mom's going to eat the food. Mom's food's going to be broken down into small particles. It's going to go through mom's bloodstream. It's going to go through. Then some of that will hit the placenta, and it will diffuse across to baby's blood supply, and that's how baby's able to get food it needs to grow. Yes, baby does have a digestive system, but obviously it's incapable of eating on its own until it is born. Okay, we're going to do a big skip here. We're going to get into 17 weeks. So this would be 19 weeks for mom's time clock. It's really close to that 20-week time zone where I said a lot of times they do ultrasounds. I mean, if mom has not showed she's pregnant, she's probably really showing at this point in time. This is where we start noticing movement. And if you're a first-time mom, it might be kind of towards the later scale, so it might be past 20-some weeks. If mom is a mother that's had several children before, she might start noticing it even a little bit sooner. But this is where baby's movements are starting to be felt. This also starts the third trimester, and a lot of this is going to be more, and you can kind of see the picture, bring on the baby fat. This is where baby's going to really start trying to put on some weight needed to survive outside of mom. It's around that 20-week time zone where we call the difference of miscarriage and a stillborn. So if we have a baby that's born prematurely and does not survive, that 20-week time zone, if you're past that, we call that a stillborn. And the reason why we kind of have this change in terminology is because at 20 weeks, there's the possibility of baby being able to survive on their own outside mom. I've never heard of a 20-week baby being able to do it, but I've heard of really close, like at 22 weeks. And as science improves, some of these likelihoods will start increasing as well. At 22 weeks, baby's hair develops and baby will be covered in hair throughout the entire body. Baby's hair will stay kind of that body hair until about 3 weeks before baby is born. So sometimes premature babies will be very hairy, and a lot of that has to do with this hair that they develop. It's kind of interesting. We almost kind of put on a fur, kind of like what mammals do, and then right before we're born, we shed all that fur. So we got hair coming in. We also can definitely see the umbilical cord, and we're noticing baby starting to get a little bit tight for room. Okay, 26 weeks, we got more brain and lung development, and baby's getting a little more crammed. You can kind of see mom definitely has her pregnancy belly, where the placenta is located. But baby, we're going to notice, is going to start really running out of room here soon. Okay, at the 7th month, brain waves are detected. So this is where then a doctor can actually detect some of baby's brain waves. Baby is capable of a little bit more complex thoughts than what it had before. One thing I also want you to notice is the position baby's in, and baby looks really cramped right now. Baby is getting close to that birthing position. So in birthing position, obviously head down. The other thing is the directions it's facing. It's kind of facing mom's back. And babies should be born face down when they come out of mom. You can have the chance of the other way. I know when I had Annabelle, the doctor asked me, were your babies always born sunny side up? And I didn't understand what she was saying. And Jeremy goes, nope, she was born face up. The other two were face down. So typically it's face down. Although those of you that saw the picture of Annabelle's not, she was kind of really moving around right before she was born. So she was kind of mad because I was induced for her pregnancy, and I don't think she was ready. The other thing to point out right here is the cervix. This is where they're going to check the dilation. So 1 is really not dilated. 10 is your mom's ready to push. And so it takes a while for that dilation. That's what a lot of those contractions are doing, is helping mom get dilated. And then the other thing that you'll notice right in here is a vaginal cavity. So once the cervix is dilated to 10, mom can start pushing, and then baby will have to pass through the cervix to the vaginal cavity in order to be born. Here's baby at 9 months. Very, very crammed. In fact, it looks like baby's hugging its legs, so it's really, really ran out of space. Baby is ready to be born at this point in time. Again, we kind of pointed out beforehand the cervix, and it's going to have a nice mucus plug to it. If that weakens or breaks, that's where someone might say my water broke, and that's some of the amniotic fluid leaking. If mom has her water break, she's committed to the pregnancy. She has about 24 hours before she needs to deliver. If mom cannot do that by then she'll probably go through a cesarean birth. The other thing I want you to pay attention to is what's going on with mom's body. So look at her bladder. Her bladder is really, really squished, and that's because the baby's weight is on top of it. So moms have to, especially at this late, they'll have to pee a lot, but really don't have much volume to it, and that's because the baby's putting a lot of pressure on the bladder. Also, look at some of the digestive organs, like the stomach. You can see the small intestine is kind of wrapped. So a lot of that gets pushed upward on the mom. Also, here is the large intestine. So there's a lot of pressure within this area. And a lot of that is because a lot of things have to reposition itself while mom's pregnant. So a lot of the stuff is kind of tight space for mom. You probably have heard pregnancy women eat a lot, or they're eating for two. And actually that isn't true, because if you look at mom's stomach, there isn't really much room for mom to eat a lot. What happens is pregnant women, because their stomach doesn't have much room to expand, they're going to be hungry a lot, but they aren't capable of eating a lot at each meal. So they're constantly kind of grazing just to keep energy supplied for mom and baby. Okay, here is the last picture. I want to kind of look at this. We kind of get into the gestation period of a variety of different mammals. We're kind of taking a biological approach. Since this is not anatomy, I know we spent a lot of time looking at human gestation, but you can see that different animals will vary. Some of that might determine or depend on how many days they carry their baby, how developed that baby is, and if they have multiples or not. So if you would look at maybe like a dog or a mouse, they're going to give birth to multiple babies at once. The other thing is babies aren't really well developed when they're born. They can't see, they have a lot of issues, and so that's the idea, is that mom would have to care and be with those babies for a point in time. Kangaroos are a little different. Kangaroo is marsupial. Their marsupials give birth to very, very premature babies, and then the babies, especially with kangaroos, stick on a pouch where then they'll feed off the mom and then slowly. Okay, if we go over to a couple other ones, you can see that the larger some of the animals are, the bigger gestation period they have. You can go all the way far over. You can see that an elephant takes around 21 months, so almost 2 years. Or if some of you paid attention to April the giraffe, it's around 14-month gestation, and so they were guessing kind of her time period, and that's where they put the camera in there to kind of pay attention to where she's at. Sometimes hoofed animals can have a little more difficult birth. Also, the longer gestation, kind of like humans, typically it's only a single birth. Now, obviously with humans, we do have twins. That might vary if mom releases one egg or two eggs, or in the case of identical, we have one egg fertilized, but for some odd reason, and science cannot explain it, that egg decides to split. Very rarely do we get multiples more than that. Now, humans can have natural triplets, but beyond that, it's very rare for humans to have multiples without some sort of fertility drugs. All right, so this is the end of my slides. I know some of them got a little goofy because I had a couple of interruptions, but you have now survived meiosis.